Coming to digital on July 19th, we have a film called Newstrains, and I want to thank the fine folks over at the studio Memory for giving me an opportunity to check this film out and let you guys know if this film is worth a watch. So stick around and let's talk about it. As a mysterious pandemic emerges, a squabbling couple in lockdown begin to act like children. The film stars Artemis Shaw and Prashanth Kamalakanthan and was directed by the same folks as well. So going into Newstrains, I didn't know anything about this film. I didn't read a synopsis on it and I didn't watch a trailer, so I went into this film really fresh. I'm not familiar with either director, though I do see that they've had a few films in the indie film scene, and this is no exception because this is another indie film that is definitely a lower budget project. Now you have a couple here. You have Ram and Kalia. They are on vacation. They are in New York. There's a pandemic going on, and obviously it is COVID, though they don't say it, and we really see a character study between both characters. Now Ram is very opposite of Kalia. He is very much paying attention to the news and the radio and just listening to the certain things that are really going on within this pandemic. People are dying, you have all these people getting sick, and he's very much worried. We see him disinfecting everything. When we first see him in the first scene, we see him with the hazmat suit. He kind of looks like a Ghostbuster a little bit with the suit that he's wearing. It was kind of goofy, but I was kind of like, yeah, this is very interesting. You know, everybody kind of handles a pandemic very much differently, and we see Ram here. He's just very much worried about every little thing. He's spraying everything down from a suitcase to a counter, and he's really worried about if his girlfriend goes out at any point in time. Now, Kalia, she does stay home a little bit, but she does wander off, and she wants to go out and get in the sun. She wants to walk around. She doesn't even have a mask, and it seems like she really doesn't take it serious because she's kind of goofy. She's definitely more of a goofy character, which I think really threw me off because there were times with her character where I felt she was very serious, and we see little examples of that when she's in a park bench and she's talking to this guy that presumably is her ex-boyfriend, and we hear that she is actually there in New York because she's trying to convince her boyfriend to actually move there because she wants to actually finish up her PhD and she wants to actually move on and have a little bit of goals to her to really actually move along with her career. Whereas Ram, we don't really see that from him. He's a rapper and he's writing all these rap lyrics. He's made some mixtapes which have absolutely failed, and he really doesn't have a lot of motivation. He doesn't seem like he can really cook. At one point, he's cooking these noodles and he doesn't have spaghetti sauce, so he mixes soy sauce with chocolate syrup. It was absolutely disgusting. We actually see him hurl and throw up, and he just doesn't seem like he can really take care of himself. Kalia is very much obsessed with her weight. We see her actually sit on the toilet and she's inputting all her calories and inputting everything that she's actually ate for the day. We see her exercise a lot. She's running, she's jogging, she's doing jumping jacks, any kind of exercise to really keep herself really going, whereas Ram is always in the house. And I had to really wonder about this couple because we do see certain little sides. Obviously, we see them when they're having sex and we see them actually making love, so we see those kinds of things that are going on. At certain points, we see them being kind of goofy with each other. I felt like the woman here is a lot more goofy than the guy was, and I felt like during certain times, her immaturity definitely seemed like it was coming out. It felt like they had a little bit of chemistry within those goofy moments, but then there were a lot of times where they're fighting, they're cursing at each other, there's some verbal abuse, and there were times where I thought there was going to be some physical abuse actually happening because it just didn't seem like they really jived. It seemed like there were two people in two different places, and there was a certain turning point in this movie where I was like, are they even going to stay together? Because at times they're really driving each other crazy. Now, from a filmmaking perspective, this film is in VHS type quality. It's in found footage type quality, so it's a lot different than your typical film, and obviously it's a lot lower budget. Now, from the filming aspect, I can say that there are things that I didn't particularly like that they use quite a bit. They zoom in a lot on the character faces and a little bit too much. Like sometimes the camera would literally be like this close to the person's face. And when they did that, it really took away from the feelings of certain scenes because it felt like they were overdoing it. The camera would be shaking because it was really close. There were also times, too, where there was just too many scenes where they're filming people's feet and filming other objects, and I was like, I don't know what they're doing. Like, they would film these art pieces, and then they would have this kind of interesting music. Like, they would have some organ music, and then they would have this music that almost felt like you were playing like a Nintendo game, like you're on a quest or something. It didn't really mash up with what the movie actually was. And also, from a genre perspective, this is labeled as a comedy, romance, sci-fi. I don't think there's really any sci-fi in this. I guess you could say there's a little bit of romance, a smidge of comedy, but I would really classify this film as more so a drama. What really fuels that drama is Rom, you can really tell, is a very insecure person. For instance, you have Kalia, who is talking to her ex-boyfriend on a bench. They're sitting about 6 feet apart, and when that conversation actually ends, you see Rom just completely snap and completely not trust his girlfriend for just unknown reasons, because she really hasn't done anything to really disearn that trust. Though I will say, with that scene when she's actually talking to her ex-boyfriend, it really drove me nuts on how they actually filmed that. So they'll be sitting there on the bench. Obviously, the ex-boyfriend is sitting about 6 feet apart from Kalia, and every time a character talks, they have the camera just focus on that character, and then they would switch over to the next character as they're saying their dialogue, and they're going back and forth, and the camera keeps switching between characters. And I was thinking to myself, to really help yourself in the filmmaking aspect, because not only are you switching back and forth between each character as they say their line, the camera is shaking as well, so it makes it very sloppy for that actual projection on screen. So why not take the camera back and just show both characters having that conversation? You really don't need to zoom back and forth between each character. I think that would have helped the film a little bit more, because I just felt like when they were actually doing that, I was thinking, this seems like something where they're trying to build a little bit more momentum in that actual scene and really capture the dialogue and the characters' faces. And I understand all that from the emotional perspective, but I just felt like it could have been a lot easier if they just panned the camera back and just show us both characters. From a narrative standpoint, you can't really expect too much with this film. From the pandemic aspect, obviously that is in the background, and that really affects this couple as a whole, as they're obviously cooped up in this apartment. So that does play, obviously, a role in certain things that are actually happening in this film. But from the couple as a perspective as a whole, I wasn't a fan of Rom. I felt like he was very verbally abusive. I didn't really think that he really offered anything to Kalia, and I really think that she deserved better. We see a little bit of goofy moments in which we see that chemistry between both characters, which I wish we got a little bit more of, because it was really hard to buy into them as a couple. And towards the last 10 minutes, I felt like there was a little bit too much in what they were actually trying to do, because even though they were trying to squeeze in those goofy moments between both characters, the last 10 minutes, it felt like it was a little bit meandering, because they're playing with Jenga blocks, I believe, and the camera is zoomed in into these blocks. And again, I just don't like what they're doing with the camera work here, because again, why do we need to zoom in into these blocks? We could just watch them a little bit from a distance playing with these blocks. I'm not sure actually the perspective of why a lot of times in this film we have to zoom in a lot of times, but apparently that is what the directors chose to do here. And I felt like towards that ending mark there, when we're starting to actually get a little bit of goofiness from these characters, the film just ends, and it feels like it's an ending that leaves you on a cliffhanger, and you're really wondering what exactly is going on with this couple, what happened with the pandemic. We don't really get a lot of resolving between all that. We just kind of see them in a particular setting, in which I'm not sure exactly how long they're actually at this setting, but we just see them in the setting, and then the film just ends. So when the film actually ended, I just felt like I felt kind of mad about the film. On one end, I understand that this is a character study, and you're watching this couple kind of foil and act as if they really can't coexist between each other. But then on one aspect, you see them kind of bonding as well. But then when the film actually ends, where's the film actually going from there? You have to kind of wonder and speculate where it really goes from there for each character, and what really happens with the pandemic after them, because we just don't know. So it's one of those endings that lands on a cliffhanger and ultimately didn't come all together for me. So as far as the score for this film, I would give it a 2 out of 5. It's one of those films that I can't really say that I would recommend for the general public. If you like indie films and you like ambitious films and really low budget films, and if you're okay with the VHS kind of style, You'll probably like the filmmaking aspect of this, but from a narrative, I feel like it has its moments, but there's just not enough to really say that I would go back and rewatch this again. So have you guys heard of this film? And if you have, are you going to check it out when it comes to VOD this Friday? Leave any and all comments down below. Thank you guys for watching as always, and I will see you guys next time.